On this week's episode, mono, dual mono, and stereo. What's the difference? Depending on who you talk to, the difference between mono, dual mono, and stereo are going to be different. If you talk to a studio engineer versus a guitar player, they're probably going to use the terms in different ways. So, to clear things up at the beginning of this video, when we say mono, we are talking about a one amplifier rig. This also applies to cab sim or amp sim. Just one output is mono. Two outputs, where both outputs are receiving the same information, is called dual mono. So if you were to run an overdrive, a mono delay, and then split your signal to two amplifiers or two outputs, that is a dual mono rig because both outputs are receiving the same information. If you were to then take that same example, an overdrive, a delay, and a left and a right output of that delay, where maybe there's a ping-ponging repeat back and forth, that is now a stereo rig. Two outputs, but the outputs are seeing slightly different information. This is our definition between mono, dual mono, and stereo that we are going to use today, and now we can talk about their specific benefits. I'll quickly go over the different benefits, pros and cons of mono, dual mono, and stereo. After I'm done doing that, we will hit the audio examples of all three and show you what these sound like. Make sure you get some headphones for this because you'll really appreciate the difference. The best thing about a mono setup, one amp, it's easy. You can plug in all your pedals one after another straight to the input of your amp and you're done. It's a little bit more easy to get a consistent sound. There's one less amp to mic up. All your dials are right there in front of you. You can memorize them all and really learn your sound quite quickly. I will note as well, if you're going to use your amp's effects loop, still a mono setup. You're just switching where the preamp of your amplifier is within your mono rig. One of the coolest things with running a dual mono setup, a mono pedal board but with two amps, is that you can start mixing amps. So with the mono rig, you'd have to choose. Either I want a Fender and I want it warm, or I want something like a Vox and I want it nice and chimey. Now in dual mono, you can mix both. One can be light, one can be dark, one can be chimey, one can be warm. It's up to you to decide how you want to mix these two sounds together. One of the other powerful things you can do with the dual mono setup, you can delay one of the amps by a few milliseconds. This blows your sound up, makes it sound huge. I'll show you this in the audio examples at the end. Moving into stereo, one of the best things that you can do with a stereo rig is add movement. So now you have a ping-ponging delay that goes back and forth. This makes your audio field sound very wide and it fills up a room. The downside to this is if one of your amps die, you will lose half of your stereo field. Something you just need to consider when going into a stereo rig. All right, now that we've talked about the pros and cons of mono, dual mono, and stereo, we can get into some audio examples. Again, make sure you have some headphones for this so you can really hear the difference. I also put the TX interfacer in the signal chain so we can seamlessly go from mono, dual mono to stereo without repatching. This is one of our products available on our website. Have a listen to these audio examples and put in the comments which one you would prefer and which one you would do on your pedal board. All right, so now you've heard the difference between mono, dual mono, dual mono with a little bit of delay, a few milliseconds on the second amp, and stereo. Next week, we are going to take this a little bit further and we're going to add in a couple more concepts to build on this knowledge and these audio examples. So stay tuned. We'll see you next week.